Hello everyone! In this video I'll show you how to create coronavirus dashboards with maps and charts using free tools and data. If you want to learn how to make coronavirus dashboards, this video is for you. As the world continues to respond to coronavirus, more and more we are seeing the use of dashboards for presenting multiple forms of visual information about coronavirus infections, recoveries, deaths, and other information. Dashboards are a useful way of presenting multiple forms of information in visual ways such as maps and charts. A dashboard helps you to see the bigger picture about what's happening through data and by extension an overall situation like coronavirus. Now, there are a lot of really great commercial visualization and geographic information systems or GIS tools that you can use to create dashboards. And you may likely have seen some of them no matter where you live in the world. However, I wanted to create a video that can show you how you can create your own coronavirus dashboards with maps and charts using free and open source tools and based on reliable data. My overall goal with this video is that if you don't have access to commercial visualization tools to make dashboards, or perhaps you're looking to expand your own technical information technology skill set, this video will get you started on how you can make your own coronavirus dashboards. In a sense, this video is a follow-up from my previous video where I showed you how to make basic maps of coronavirus data. In this video, specific things I will teach you include what a dashboard is, things you should also consider when creating a dashboard, such as the layout of the dashboard design, focusing on the end user of your dashboard, an area called user experience and user-centered design, and how you can find different forms of reliable data that you can use to create a coronavirus dashboard. I'll then show you the specific steps on how to make a dashboard using open source geographic information systems or GIS tools I've used in previous videos. And I'll also show you a chart making tool that you can access right from the GIS tool. At the end of the video, I'll provide an advanced technical discussion on creating an interactive web-based coronavirus dashboard using open source mapping and charting tools. I'll use a case study of creating a basic dashboard using coronavirus data with state-level coronavirus data from India to illustrate the ideas in this video. Now, I developed this particular case study to get you started to think about coronavirus dashboards beyond the country level that have been very popular in the mainstream media. Coronavirus operates on a local level affecting individuals, and I think going forward, we're going to need more dashboards that can really contextualize coronavirus at the local level. However, no matter where you live in the world, you should be able to transfer the ideas and techniques I show you in this video for building a dashboard about coronavirus or anything else. And like I said, throughout this entire video, I will use a free and open source software package so you can get started right away learning how to make coronavirus dashboards. Links to the software, data, and code I use are available in the video's descriptions below. And by the way, I've also included a link to the full GIS project that I show you in the technical demonstration that you can go ahead and download to help you get started with making your own dashboard. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, share this video, or consider subscribing to this channel. All right, let's go learn how to make coronavirus dashboards. Hello, and welcome to this video on how to create coronavirus dashboards with maps and charts using free tools and data. To give you an overview about what you'll learn in this video, I've designed this video for people that want to learn how to create your own coronavirus dashboards that use maps and charts to show coronavirus cases. I'm also assuming that you have some basic knowledge of how to work with computers and information technology, specifically how to download and unzip files on your computer. I'll first go over some dashboard concepts and design practices. And then I'll show you how to create a basic static dashboard using the QGIS software. I'll also include an advanced discussion on a web-based interactive dashboard that may be of interest to you if you have skills with web development and programming languages such as JavaScript. For a little bit more of a technical scope of what is covered in this video, I want to teach you how to go beyond country-level dashboards. For example, showing coronavirus cases at the subnational level and generally trying to provide more context. I'll show you how you can compile and curate data related to coronavirus cases. I'll review a core geographic information system skill known as table joining. I'll show you the specific steps on how you can create a static dashboard layout using QGIS with maps and charts. I'll then show you how you can prepare data for export into a format known as GeoJSON. And then I'll show you how you can use the GeoJSON in a demonstration of a web-based interactive dashboard. Again, this last point is more of an advanced topic, but I encourage you to learn how you can start to take your coronavirus dashboards to new levels through the web. Here's an example of what I'll show you how to make. I'll show you how to download all of the data used in this example, how to process the data, and how to create a static dashboard like this using a free and open source geographic information systems tool called QGIS. And as I previously discussed as a very advanced topic, I will show you how you can take what you created in QGIS and export it out of QGIS to make a web-based interactive dashboard prototype like this that I developed for the video using all open source tools. This prototype makes limited use of a concept from information visualization known as linked brushing, where interaction between the visual interface elements, such as moving the mouse over a state of India, causes the same data point to be interacted with in another visual interface, or in this example, the bar chart. All of the code for this prototype is available for download. See the comment section of this video. Also, to give you a quick overview of the tools and the data that will be used in this video, links to all of these tools will be provided in the comment section below. I'll use a lot of commonly available open source tools that include the Google Chrome web browser, OpenOffice Calc, which is similar to Microsoft Excel, a zip tool called 7-Zip, Notepad++ for editing text files, and I'll use QGIS as the main desktop GIS software. And also for the advanced web-based interactive dashboard, I'll show you a little bit about Leaflet.js and Chart.js. Leaflet.js is a common open source mapping tool used on the web, and Chart.js is a common open source charting tool used for the web. Datasets I'll use will come from the India Ministry of Health and Family Welfare and the DIVA-GIS Indian state boundaries. I'll also briefly touch upon using the World Bank country boundaries. Detail on all of these datasets will be provided in just a moment. Before we dive into the specific topic of creating a dashboard related to coronavirus data, I thought it might be helpful to first talk about what a dashboard is in general. A dashboard is a collection of visual interfaces that are used to provide measurement of some indicator of interest. By combining all the visual interfaces together, the dashboard can be used to give you an overall picture of the goal or topic of interest. You most likely have already probably seen a dashboard, most likely in an automobile. In this image, you're seeing a dashboard from a van from the United States. This dashboard tells me the speed of the vehicle, how much fuel is remaining, how many miles the vehicle has traveled over its lifetime, the temperature of the engine, how many revolutions per minute or RPM the engine is currently doing. All of these data points are used for both the safety of the vehicle, such as notification if the engine is overheating, or more practical things such as how much fuel is left in the vehicle so you don't run out of gas. So a coronavirus dashboard is basically the same idea as a dashboard from a vehicle, combining multiple visual interfaces to keep aware of a situation that is going on. In this example, the status of coronavirus in a country. In this image, which is from the prototype web-based coronavirus dashboard that I showed you previously, you'll see three visual interfaces: a geographic map, a bar graph, and a scatter plot. Each of these gives some indication of indicators of interest related to coronavirus, in this case at the state level in India, and using different visual representations to communicate those indicators. In this example, the dashboard is showing the number of coronavirus cases, recoveries, and deaths from coronavirus. Coronavirus dashboards have become very popular all over the world, given the ability of a dashboard to combine various visual interfaces together to represent different variables of interest related to coronavirus. For example, like seen previously, the numbers of new cases of coronavirus, people that have recovered from the virus, and people that have died from the virus. Often, these dashboards feature a geographic map as the central interface, with other types of graphs and other visual interfaces used to create the coronavirus dashboard. And like you saw in the brief demonstration at the beginning of this video, often the visual interfaces can interact with one another using linked brushing. In the next slide, we'll take a look at perhaps one of the most popular coronavirus dashboards as of 2020. Here we see a screenshot of the Johns Hopkins Center for Systems Science and Engineering COVID-19 dashboard. As of 2020, this is perhaps one of the most well-known coronavirus dashboards that's been created. Often news media sources use the data contained in this dashboard for statistics and figures about the state of coronavirus in the world. Make note of a few visual interface elements in this dashboard. Note how the map is the central visual interface, and in this example showing coronavirus cases at the world level. Note that there is a line graph on the bottom right that shows the cumulative number of cases around the world. And note how they also provide controls for changing the styling of the line graph. And the dashboard also includes basic statistical numbers such as the total number of cases around the world and a country breakdown. If you're looking for inspiration for how to create your own dashboard, take a look at the Johns Hopkins dashboard, a link for which is provided in the comment sections below of this video. When creating a dashboard, it can be important to give a little thought as to what you're actually going to create before going about doing technical tasks. As a reminder, your goal is to combine separate visual interfaces into one overall interface. Take a moment to think about what you want to show. Who is the audience? Give that a little bit of thought. For example, are they the general public, government leaders, technical specialists? The type of audience for the dashboard is often what will dictate what type of visual interfaces that you will use in the dashboard. I'll talk more on this specific topic in a moment when I discuss the idea of what is called user-centered design. And think about, how do you want to show it? Do you want to use a geographic map, a bar chart, a pie chart, text? These decisions will often be made by the type of data that you have to work with, as well as the audience that you're designing the dashboard for. And keep in mind that creating a dashboard is often an iterative process. You'll most likely go through several designs and variations once you come up with a final design that works for your intended audience. For example, before you start spending a lot of time on doing technical tasks on the computer, you might just want to take a moment and sketch out with good old pen and paper the design of your dashboard. This can be a very helpful way to develop prototypes that in the long run will save you a lot of time not creating something that will not be of value to your users of your dashboard. In this example, I sketched out a simple dashboard design that features a geographic map that takes half of the size of the interface, along with a bar chart and a simple text table. Later in this video, I'll show you how you can turn this simple pen and paper design into an actual product using QGIS software and datasets I'll show you how to download and work with. And like I said earlier, dashboard design can be an iterative process, so you may in fact experiment with several different designs before you actually build something. In this example, I reconsidered the design I showed you earlier by making 4 equally sized visual interfaces that contain a geographic map, a scatter plot, a pie chart, and a bar chart. So remember, A paper prototype can be a very cost-effective way to start designing your dashboard and getting feedback from people who might use your dashboard before you actually get into the technical task of building the dashboard. And as one final comment, always keep the end user of your dashboard in mind, or really anything else that you're going to make. This is what is known as user-centered design, or the idea that anything you create is always being built around whoever is going to use what is being created, as opposed to creating something that's more focused on the person who's creating it. For example, it's easy to slip into the trap of making a fun and interesting graphic that looks cool and interesting to you, but has no actual end value to the people that might actually use what you create. And remember the KISS principle. Keep it simple. If your dashboard is too complicated, people will not use it. Think about a time when you tried to use something that was overly complicated and would have benefited from simplification, such as a complicated website or app on your phone. For example, perhaps you visited a website you found very difficult to navigate and you clicked away from it within seconds. Related to the point is the bigger idea of what is known as user experience, or UX. User experience is a well-studied field. This diagram highlights some of the key points you should think about when engaging in user experience for both creating a dashboard or anything else. As seen in this user experience honeycomb diagram, for example, useful. Your content, such as a dashboard, should be original and fulfill a need. Usable. The dashboard must be easy to use. Desirable. Ideally, through image, identity, brand, and other design elements, will be used to invoke emotion and appreciation. Findable. Your dashboard needs to be navigable and located on-site and available to people. Think about accessibility. Is the content of your dashboard accessible to people with disabilities, such as color blindness, or perhaps they can't read? And credible. As you'll hear me say in a lot of these coronavirus videos, you must use data from credible sources. Users must trust and believe what you're telling them with your dashboard, or anything else you build for that matter. So with some of these background concepts in mind, let's now begin to think about creating a dashboard related to coronavirus cases at the state level in India, which is the featured case study of this video. At a minimum, you can go through some of the questions that I outlined just a few moments ago as part of the design process. For example, what do I want to show? I want to show COVID-19 confirmed cases, discharged, and deaths at the state level for India based on official sources. Who is the audience? The audience for this dashboard will be the general public. And how do I want to show it? I'm going to use a combination of a geographic map, a bar chart, and a text info table, as I want this to be as easy to use for as many people as possible, as per the ideas of user-centered design and user experience that I previously discussed. So for example, when developing the static dashboard for coronavirus cases in India, I'll use this paper prototype sketch to inform my design. And as you can see, this hand-drawn prototype then becomes the final product that I will show you how to create using QGIS. Let's talk now about the data sets I'll use for this dashboard. As discussed in previous videos, it is essential that you use reliable, official data for any kind of coronavirus product you might create, dashboard, map, or otherwise. For this case study, we're going to use Ministry of Health and Family Welfare data published by the Government of India. A link to where you can access this webpage is available in the comments section below. Note that this webpage as of 2020 does not give you direct data that you can download. However, it is conveniently structured in a table that'll show you how you can pull off of this webpage and plug into a comma-separated values or CSV file that we will then bring into our QGIS mapping program. Note too that when you're watching this video, data on this website may have changed in terms of its format. So make sure to make any adjustments you see if there's something different between what you're watching in this video and what you're seeing when you go to look at this data yourself. I'll next show you how you can download what is known as reference data in the form of the boundaries of Indian states. We will obtain these data sets from the DIVA-GIS website, which is a useful source for finding free reference data on country boundaries around the world, particularly at the subnational and administrative boundaries such as Indian state boundaries, as opposed to just country outlines. I also want to briefly mention about an important Geographic Information Systems or GIS technical topic that we will do in the hands-on portion of this video. Specifically, we are going to do a table join. A table join is the idea that two data tables have a common column or field in common. Using this common field or column, the two tables can then be combined together into one table. In this graphic, the table on the left is a reference data set that shows the boundaries of land use polygons. The land use polygon contains a column called land use code that is a number. The table on the right contains descriptions of those land use codes, as well as a land use code number. Because both tables have a column that contain a land type code number, the two tables can then be joined together. By joining the tables together, the final map can then contain the textual description of what the land code description is, which is more intuitive to the map user as opposed to just a land type code number. For the hands-on demonstration, we are going to do is join together the state-level coronavirus data from the Government of India with the administrative boundaries of India that we download from DIVA-GIS. By combining these two data sets, we will then be able to create both static and interactive dashboards, a process that I'll show you in the hands-on demonstration. I do want to mention that I'm also going to use the World Bank country boundaries. These are an excellent data set for providing country-level reference data. I will not discuss how to download and incorporate these data sets into QGIS, as this was a topic I covered in another video, and see the card above to reference that video where I talk more specifically about these specific data sets. Before I get into the hands-on technical demonstration, let's just first go through the specific steps involved in creating a static coronavirus dashboard. Step 1, we're going to acquire state-level coronavirus data for India. In step 2, we're going to acquire reference geographic data for India. In step 3, we're going to prepare these data sets for table joining. In step 4, we'll join the data sets together in QGIS. In step 5, we will then create a static dashboard layout in QGIS. In step 6, we'll export the data sets out as GeoJSON from QGIS. And then later, I'll show you how to plug the GeoJSON into a web-based interactive dashboard. With all these steps in mind, let's now begin the hands-on technical demonstration to show you how you can make a coronavirus dashboard with charts and maps. All right, and welcome to the hands-on portion of this video. We're going to start with downloading COVID-19 data at the state level from India. And what you're seeing right now is the website of the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. And what we're going to do is load this page up and scroll down, and we're going to look for right here where it says COVID-19 statewide status. Click to expand. So when I click on that, you'll see this table of information or data about the different states of India. Confirmed cases, cured, discharged, and people that have died. Now keep in mind, this website may be different at the time you're looking at, and keep in mind too, if you're not from India but you want to do something similar, you do have to be a little creative with how you can go and access data. For example, I can't just go and download this data directly. I have to do some minor technical tricks to get it out. Now, I was particularly happy with this data set because it is easy to capture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up OpenOffice Calc, and this is a software similar to Microsoft Excel. And you can use Microsoft Excel, by the way, if you have it, but this whole lecture is using free and open source tools, so I'm going to use OpenOffice Calc. And all I'm going to do on this table on the website is highlight everything. So starting, and I'm just going to scroll down, and I won't grab the totals, but I've got all the different states. I'm going to right click and do copy. And then I'm going to come back open to Office Calc. And I'm going to click on the first cell, right click and do paste. And that's it. It's that easy. And so now I've got the state level data in a table format, and I can eventually join that data onto some state boundaries that we'll do in just a second. So what I'm going to do is with this, I'm going to save it. And this whole video, I'm going to use my C temp directory for downloads and other things. And I'm going to call it India COVID. And I'm going to save it as a CSV, a comma separated file, as that's a pretty universally available file format. Text CSV. And I'll keep the current format, and I'll take the defaults there. Ignore any warnings, and that's it. Now we're going to come back to this in just a moment. We have to do some cleanup, but let's move on now to step 2, where we're going to download reference data sets for India. And for that, we're going to go over to DIVA-GIS, and I have a link to this in the comments in the video. And I'm going to look for India. And by the way, I use this website as it's really easy to use, and it's got country data from all over the world. So if you're not from India, but you want to build a dashboard for your country, you might find this to be a useful resource. And I'll find India. And from the drop down here, I want the administrative areas. I'll hit OK. And I'll click on the download button here. And I'm going to go ahead and put that in my C temp directory, where I'm putting all my project files. IND India admin. I'll save that. 14 megabytes. And I can do this little thing here in Chrome. I'll show it in the folder. And there it is, India admin. Now 14 megabytes, this is where you have to unzip the file. So I'm going to right click. I'm using 7-zip. And I'll extract it to its own folder. And you may, if it's easier for you, you might want to rename it. And what you have inside of here now, you have several what are known as shape files, and these are what are going to be the basis for our map when we will create in just a moment here. Okay, so that's a technical thing, but admin 0, admin 1, and so forth, those are different sort of administrative levels in the country. So what we're going to now do is start to look at some of these files. So I'm going to go to QGIS that I already have opened with a brand new project with nothing in it. And again, this isn't a video designed to train on all the aspects of QGIS. A really sort of quick and dirty way you can get data into QGIS. I want to take the admin1 SHP or shapefile. I'm going to drag that right out of Windows Explorer and drop it in the layers pane. And what I get with that is I get all of the states of India. And again, as I talked about earlier in the video, we're going to take and join this data onto these states so we can start making some dashboards. And the first thing we're going to want to do is take a look at what's going on underneath here. If I go to ind admin 1, I right click and do open attribute table, you can see the different attributes associated with each of these shapes. A state of India that I've actually visited is Tamil Nadu. So when I highlight that row, you see how the shape turns yellow because that record has been selected in the table. And of course, this is a much bigger topic about GIS in general. There's links I'll provide for if you want to learn more about this stuff, but we're really focused on getting into making a dashboard. Okay. Okay, let's move on now to step 3 and prepare these data sets for table joining. Now, the central issue here we'll have to deal with is the fact that we have to have a column between the two of these data tables, basically the attribute table from the Indian states and our COVID data that's in common. So we can basically take all the data from here and add it to this table here. And the main issue is that we have to really work out that column. Now, if we look at some of the columns in the Indian states, we'll see that there's not exactly something that's directly related. We could possibly use the names, but there could be some difference in the spelling. What you want to do with a table join is you really want something as easy as possible, an ID column and so forth. Now, it might be tempting to look at this. If you look at this column A, S number, 1, 2, 3, that looks pretty good. But when you look at it closer, there may not be exact matchups. So for example, like number 8, ID number 1 column 8 over here is Dadra in Nagar Haveli. I apologize if I'm saying that incorrect. And over in this table, number 8 is Delhi, which is number 10 over here. So you could possibly use those numbers and maybe ignore those ones. But here's what I recommend for you as a longer term investment. Let's say that you're planning to make dashboards for your given area of interest for a long time. It would be worth it to actually update this table so that you can do subsequent table joins in the future. And so the way you would do that is I'm actually then going to make a new column in the shapefile I downloaded, and I'm going to make a new ID number based on what I get from the official government data, so that down the road, if I want to update it again with a table join, I already have it all set. It's a little investment of your time, but it's really not that bad once you do it. So the way we're going to do that is, let's see, we're going to start editing the data set, toggle edit mode, and we have to look for the we want to click right here, a new field, and we're going to call this new field I'll call it new ID for identification. I'll make it a whole integer. Okay. And then basically what I'm going to do is put these two windows side by side. And I'm going, so I have the kind of the name here, and I'm basically just going to match the two together. Now, if you have a better way to do this, I'm just going to do it manually. So I know that Andaman Nicobar Islands is going to be 1. And it might be a little easier actually to do it like this. Yeah. Andhra Pradesh will be number 2. Number 3, and so forth. And some things to point out too, when you get down to the example I showed earlier, because these are union territories and they're not being reported, at least in the state data, I'll just give those a value of 0 because they don't, for now, have a corresponding ID in the other table. I'm not going to make you watch me put all these numbers in, but just note here at this case too, here's another one that's missing, and also note the spelling between Orisha and Odisha, how they're different. You can fix it in different place depending on how you want it represented on a map, but just make note of that as you go through these data sets. And this is not just a thing for India. You always got to make sure that any data set you download, especially for free, will have consistency. Here's another little thing to point out too, sort of the alphabetical order between these last 3, Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand, and West Bengal. Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh, West Bengal. So again, just keep a close eye on these things. So Uttar Pradesh is actually number 31 over here. Uttarakhand is number 30. And West Bengal is going to be 32. Okay, so I went through, and like I said, I've matched up all of these numbers, and I've created my own numbers over here in a modified version. And make sure to always save your work once you do that, because you just made the time to go through all of that. And now let's go take a closer look back over here. We're We just have to do a few modifications of this data. Whenever you do a table join, you need to have the easiest format of the data. So what I'm going to do simply is change some of these headings around. So instead of calling it S number, I'm just going to call it ID. I'm basically just taking out all the weird characters. I'm going to call this one state. I'm going to call this one confirmed. I'm going to call this one discharged. And again, this isn't specific to India. Anytime you work and create your own data set, you want to have the easiest column headings, no special characters, because it can be a real pain sometimes to get table joins to work correctly because of annoying formatting issues. So I've got, here we go, a nice data set. We've got 5 columns, got all my records and so forth, and it looks like I am good to go to bring this over. So I'm going to save the CSV, and I'll close it because I don't need it anymore, and I'll go back over to QGIS. Okay, now let's move on to step number 4, doing the actual join of the data sets in QGIS. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go up here to layer, add a delimited text layer, and I'm going to browse to my ctemp directory where I created that CSV file. And here it is right here, India COVID CSV. I'm going to open that up. And by default, CSV, comma separated values. It has no geometry. It's just what's called an attribute table. And this is what you want. You want a nice, here's all those column headings looking good. The data is all ready to go. I've got my ID and so forth. If you run into problems, if you're not seeing something nice and sort of clean like this, go back and double check your underlying data. Things like commas or dashes or weird characters will trip up the import process and so forth. So I'm going to go ahead and add, and I'll close that. And so now you can see here, India COVID. There's my table. And let's go ahead now and do the table join. So the way that's going to work, I'm going to go to the India admin. I'm going to right click and go to Properties, Joins, then hit the plus button to add a new join. And the join layer is going to be India COVID, and it's going to use the ID, and the target field is going to be the one that we created and engineered it so it matched the numbers in the data we downloaded. And that's it. So join layers, India COVID, ID, the new ID. I hit OK, hit apply. And if everything worked correctly, when I go to the attribute table now of the administrative boundaries and open the attribute table, I should see, and there you see, so see how here it says India COVID state. So all of these are the records from my CSV file, and as a check, name 1, this column, were all the data records from the original shape file, and these are all the join data, and this is what you want. You can double check, so that if the names are the same, you got it, and what you really wanted here are those numbers, and this is what we can now use to make our dashboard with. All right. Now let me just show you, even before we get to making charts and dashboards and so forth, let me just show you real quick what you can do with this map. One thing that you can do, if I go to the properties and go to symbology and click up here, I can start making what are called choropleth maps. So if I click under here and I do graduated, and because of my table join, I now have numerical data. And that's the whole power behind a table join, why it's so common in GIS, is that you can bring numerical data and combine it with reference data. So let's say I want the confirmed number of cases. I want to make a map showing that. So I use that table join field, and I'll do down here natural breaks with 5 classes. I'll hit apply. And you can see right off the bat, I get a choropleth map. Now, one thing I did want to mention, just a little bit about cartography and design, is making your colors just look a little better. And I recommend using this website called Color Brewer, and I'll put a link to it in the video. And this is a wonderful resource that you can use to make maps that look good, but also use proper color science. I know I've seen plenty of maps that are very poorly designed, and Color Brewer, for example, like I want to show 5 classes using sequential colors and perhaps with a single hue or a multi-hue, right? And so what I can do then is set that up, because I'm using numbers and I want 5 classes and so forth. And these are kind of the colors I used when I was putting the slides together. And then what I can go over here is get the RGB or the hex value, depending. And what I can do then is plug those values in to my QGIS value numbers or color values here. So if I go back over here, and let's say instead of using white for that symbol, I just double click on that white shape. I go to color and I select choose color, and then I get this HTML. What I can do is go over to Color Brewer, and you have ways you can export it, CSS and so forth. Other way I do it too is just I kind of highlight and copy it. Come over here, paste it in. Oh, whoops, I clicked on the wrong one. I want, yeah, no, that's, yeah. There we go. And I apply, and you can see the start of this. Now, I won't make you go through watching me do this for every single one of them, but I'll do one more. So the next one, I'll double click on that shape. I'll go to color. So instead of this sort of salmon pink, I'll do choose color, and I'll go back over to Color Brewer, and I'll grab the second one. So basically what you can see is I'm just matching up the 5 color classes from low to high, and I'm applying them into my map here. I'm going to copy that hex value, put that in the HTML notation, hit OK, OK, and apply, and so forth. And you can see the maps are changing. Let me, I'll go through now and apply all of the other colors, and not make you watch me go through applying all these colors. Okay, so I've finished applying all of the Color Brewer colors to my confirmed cases data, and you can just see the map, it just looks better using the Color Brewer colors. So I recommend using that resource. In fact, if you use tools like ArcGIS Pro, the Color Brewer color palettes are what they use now. So don't just automatically use whatever colors come up. There is a lot to cartography and so forth, another big topic that we don't really have time to talk about. So let's now start step number 5, creating a static dashboard layout. Let me first show you a plugin called Plotly, which actually can be a very handy little tool for making charts in general. And the way I'm going to use Plotly is I'm going to install a plugin. So to install the plugin, I'm going to go up here to Plugins, Manage and Install Plugins, and I'm assuming you don't have it installed, and I'm going to look for, it's called DataPlotly, and this is a nice tool for adding information data graphics that can go along with your map. So I'll go ahead and install that plugin. And I'll close this window, and you can see here now I have a new button that shows up. So let's go ahead and open up Plotly, and I'll make a basic bar plot just to show you how it works. So I'm going to select bar plot, and let's make a basic bar plot or chart showing the confirmed cases by each state. And so for my X field, I'm going to select name 1, and for my Y field, again, this is where my table join is still coming in, my confirmed cases, and I'll just use the default values here. And so if I go ahead just with that, and I can do create plot, you can see it gives me a basic bar chart. And you might want to do, if it's not checked already, dynamically update the size. So that will help with if you adjust your windows and so forth between the two. Now, this in itself is a kind of dashboard, right? So I've got a map over here. If you're new with QGIS, you know, I can do things like click on identify, and that tells me things about it. And a cool thing with Plotly is, you know, I can mouse over and so forth. And if I click on records here, it'll highlight the corresponding record in my table. Now, for some reason, I honestly don't know why. This is a, you know, what I call a learning moment. It's added a second one here, and maybe somebody in the comments can tell me why. I don't claim to be an expert on this, but I can go and clean the plot canvas kind of to start over and do a single plot and create a new one. And that'll clean that up. And so I can mouse over and get things when I click on the various shapes. By the way, I have a couple things selected. If you need to clear the selected features, one way that you can do that. And again, somebody else might be able to give me a better way of doing this. Deselect all. And so when you use a tool like identify, it'll keep things selected. And once you clean up the graph, you can see how you can mouse over. When you click on, notice how when I click on part of the graph, it's highlighting the corresponding record in the map. That in itself is a kind of dashboard. So even that might be helpful for you to have the map compare with a data graphic and so forth. Okay, so where we're at now, we've joined the data sets, we've created a map, we've created a simple data plot, and now let's move on to the next step, which is to create a static dashboard layout. And what we're going to do with this is we're going to combine the map with two different plots or graphs. All right, let's move on now to the next step where we actually create the static dashboard in QGIS. Oh, and by the way, don't forget to always save your project. All right, as we get ready for this next step, I've gone ahead and added the World Bank country boundaries into our map to give some what we call some context or figure ground relationships between India and the surrounding countries. I'll close the plot. Let's do a few things too to get this map ready for making a static dashboard layout. The first thing I want to do is actually clean up the presentation here a little bit. So instead of calling it Ind Admin 1, I might call it India COVID-19. And instead of having all these decimal places in my legend, I'm going to click here and have them trimmed out instead of having multiple zeros. That's pretty handy. It allows you to do that. So I'll hit that to apply there. And so forth. So just another thing too I'll do is under properties is add some labels. And I'll do a single label and I'll label it with that name 1. And I'll maybe make those down a little bit. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on, you know, fine tuning every little bit of this. I just want to show you what's possible. And you can see here that it adds kind of the names of the states on there. And again, if you see this yellow one is selected from before, you can open the attribute table. And I believe it is, yeah, deselect, Control Shift A, and see now it's 0. So we've got a map ready to go, and let's do that now to create a dashboard. So I'm going to go to Project, New Print Layout, and I'll call it Okay, so the first thing I want to do to start building my static dashboard, I'll add a map under the Add Item menu, and I'm going to make it about halfway of the page, sort of as per the design layout we showed earlier. And it'll take a moment to render. Now, the first thing we want to do, of course, is adjust the position of India. We want it to really fill things out. So I'm going to do that with this here, and then I'll use my mouse wheel to very gently zoom the map in. And then I hold my left button down to adjust the pan of the map. And, you know, India is kind of interesting. It's both long and wide in terms of filling that frame out. And I'll click this one if I want to adjust this part again. And I think that'll be pretty good. Now, design-wise, I have all this open space. I'll put my legend in there next. And the way I'll do that is add item, add the legend. And I'm going to fill that space out there. And some of these things I don't want to have in my legend. So what you can do here for that part is go over to the legend items, uncheck auto update, and take the things out that you don't want. I don't need to show the CSV file. I kind of don't really need to show the country boundaries in the legend, but the way I set my title up, India COVID-19, and so forth. Now, let's say you don't actually, maybe India COVID-19 is not very intuitive. So what you could do to fix that is save it, save the layout, go back over here and change the name of the layer, because you're showing confirmed. Okay, now unfortunately you'll have to redo a little bit. So, but if I click auto update, you can see it brings everything back. So then I uncheck that, and then I just take the things out I don't want. But now I've got a more intuitive legend, and again I've positioned it so that the legend is taking advantage of that space that's created right there. And when I'm happy with it, I can lock it down so that nothing happens to it. Now, some other little things you might want to do for the design here, though, is to add a frame around it and so forth, and you can use the zoom to see how it's shaping up. So that just gives it a little bit more contrast. You could really do the same thing for the map and so forth. Like I said, I'm not going to have time to go into in-depth every little possible thing that you can do, but that's why making a good map takes a long time, because there are all these little details that you can work on to make it look nice and so forth. So that we're already off to a good start, though. All right, let's go ahead now and add the plot item in. So what I'm going to do here is select add item, add plot item, and I'm going to make it, you know, fill up that quarter space there. And over here, I'll select plot item, and it'll default to scatter. So what I want to do now next is set up selected plot. And I'm going to make, I think they call it a duo plot, where I show two things. So I'm going to change it from scatter plot to bar plot. And I can make this a little bigger so I have a little more room to see what I'm doing. And in this case, the X field, I'll use the state names. In the Y field, like I showed you earlier, I'll use the confirmed cases, and I'll make that one blue. And I'll give it the plot a title. And so forth here, and let's update it and see what it looks like. And there I get that. Okay, now if you wanted to add a second plot, what you can do is go over to, you click on that to get out of here. Now, if I go here and add another one, make this a bar plot. And the same thing, I'll use the name one, and this time let's say I'll use the deaths And I'll give that bar a different color, make it red, because I mean it's showing something powerful like people that have died and so forth. And if I update it, you can see now how the plot has changed, where it's showing different values. You know, the first one was the confirmed cases and the second one is the death by state. And now you can make a lot of adjustments to this layout in general. I found that when I was preparing this, you actually have to, most of the main things like the labels and the title come from the thing that's the first thing. So if I go back over to this one, uncheck the horizontal legend, that'll move things around a little bit. And you'll have to play around with this, you know, make that to size it up a little better and so forth, right? But that's, again, as per the dashboard idea. Now this is your chart, a bar chart with two different variables. And let's add one more thing as per the design I showed you. I'll save this. Oh, nope, that is a template. I'll just save it. All right, let's add one more thing to our static dashboard. I'll add a data table. So I go up here to add item, add attribute table. And what I'm going to show here are the top 10 states with discharge values. Now, the first thing you'll see is you get tons and tons of columns. So what you want to first do is go to your attributes, and you can start pairing out things you don't need. Like you don't need to show all these ID and ISO. You basically want the name and whatever it is you're interested in. So I'll just go ahead and start removing those. So I want the name one. A little tedious, but doesn't take long for you to get to what you want. And then, so if I hit OK, so you can see right off the bat, that will kind of make it a little more readable. And so forth. Now, if you just wanted just the discharge values, again, I can go and take everything else out. I'm sorry, we're going to do just the confirmed value. So I'll get rid of discharged and the death rate. And then I'll sort the table by descending. Oh, forgot to take that one out. And I didn't click that, so we want, okay, so now you can see how I've got just the states, sort of the top 10. Now there's more than 10 that are in here, so kind of a hack I did when I was putting this together is you could just simply resize it and so forth, depending on how you want to show it and so forth. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15 ways you could make it bigger to fill it out. You can make the table heading font a little bigger, and that'll push records out. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if Punjab is the final one, there you go. So kind of a little bit of a hack, but you know, again, I don't ever claim to be a complete world expert on all little aspects of using these tools. So if somebody has a better way of doing it, please write a comment in the section below, but what I do like to show you is what's possible and so forth with just generally getting these tools started. Oh, and one thing else I should mention too, just to make it look a little better in presentation, instead of using name_1, if I go to attributes, I'll give the heading, I'll call this one, confirmed cases. And makes that a little nicer presentation. All right. Finally, what you might want to, again, always save your work. Now, you might want to put some other things to think about here. You might want to put a line around that, a frame, kind of make it visually stand out. And you might also want to add a label for a title. Again, something like that. And you have a lot of different formatting, just like you've seen with the other, if you're new to these tools, once you work with them, you'll find they have the kind of the same way. Usually you make your title the biggest thing. It looks like I can see a typo here. So I'll fix that. And I'll make that in the center. So it's really prominent and so forth. So there you go. There you have a basic static dashboard. But as you learned about in the beginning of this video, it has a geographic map, it has a bar chart showing 2 variables, and it has a data table. And this could be a product, even though I made it for you quickly, that if you spent more time in really refining it, could be used to show multiple variables of interest using visual interfaces. And what you can do with something like this, of course, always save your work. You can then go ahead and lay out, export it as an image. And I'll just save it right as a PNG file. You can adjust all that. And you get your graphic right here. And then you can use that however you want. You can put it in a report, put it on a web page, or so forth. And you're good to go. And there's your basic sort of dashboard graphic thing. Now, I also want to show you one last little thing that's kind of important if you want to make your data sets more widely available, and that's to export this data as a GeoJSON layer. And it's pretty easy to do. So I'm going to go back to the main QGIS program. I'm going to go to my shapefile that I created the join. I'm going to right click. I'm going to right click on that layer and do export. Save features as. And right by default, it's going to give you a GeoJSON. And I'll save it in my project directory. I'll call it India. I'll hit the save button, and you really don't need to do much with it. That is pretty much sufficient. I mean, you can, if you get into this more technical stuff, yeah, we'll add it to the map to see what it looks like, and I'll hit OK. And it takes a couple seconds to run. But what you have here now is you have a new data set, a GeoJSON, which I didn't really explain much what a GeoJSON is, but I'll provide a link for it. GeoJSON is basically a text representation. If I now were to right click on this new file and open its attribute table, it basically took the shapefile for the state boundaries, combined it with my CSV file, and now they're all sort of one master file. And with this, I can now use it in my web-based dashboard that I've talked about earlier in this video. And just to look behind the scenes, here's the file it just created. Just make note, it's actually a kind of a large file it'll create, almost 22 megabytes, because basically what it is a text file with every little vertice of every little shape rendered out in text. So it makes it a really big file format and so forth. So I hope you found this of benefit in terms of how to go about using QGIS to take data sets that you've downloaded, curated, brought into QGIS, done a table join, created bar graphs, and then created a layout. And there's a lot more room for improvement. You can go from what I've showed you relatively quickly. And so in the next part of this video, I'll give you a hands-on quick demonstration of the interactive dashboard that will take the GeoJSON that we created as the final step in this process and takes it to a whole nother place where you can use and interact with it. Finally, I want to do a brief demonstration of a prototype web-based interactive dashboard I put together for this video. Some of you had asked me about how to create coronavirus data and maps that could be put on the web, and in the spirit of this video being focused on free and open source tools, I created a prototype accordingly. Note that development of a web-based interactive dashboard, especially using open source web development tools, is a very advanced topic. However, that should not discourage you, and I would encourage you to learn web computer programming languages such as JavaScript so you can begin to build like what I'm going to show you. And note that I'm not going to do a coding demonstration. Rather, I'm going to walk you through the existing source code so that if you do have some experience as a web developer, you can get a sense of how all the pieces fit together as a starting point for your own development, especially if you're new to doing web development that involves using mapping and charting tool libraries. Source code for this prototype is available through my website, and a link to where you can download the source code is available in the comments below. And as one final comment, note that this is just a prototype tool I put together for this video to show you what's possible. I'm not a full-time web developer, and I would encourage any of you with web development skills to take what I started and take it to a new level. Okay, so welcome to the what I'm calling the advanced part of this lesson. This is just a really quick overview of this prototype open source COVID dashboard that I built with Leaflet.js and Chart.js. If you're somebody who has web development skills, I think you'll find this of interest, or hopefully this will encourage you to want to build something like this. So what I have here is when I move my mouse over the different shapes, it makes this bar chart interact with it, and that's what you might call linked brushing. And I can move it around. You might notice the colors look familiar from what you just saw earlier in the video. If you're new to mapping, web mapping tools, this is Leaflet.js. It's a very popular open source JavaScript library for mapping. It's similar to Google Maps and so forth. This is using Chart.js, excuse me, for doing the charting. And again, like I said, it's a prototype. So there might be some little bugs in it, and the scatter plot doesn't interact with other things, but what I'm showing on the x-axis are the confirmed cases, and on the y-axis the discharged, and I have the labels accordingly. Now let's look under the hood as a little code walkthrough. I'm not going to code the whole thing out for you, but if I do view page source, and again, that's why this is the advanced thing. It is helpful if you know what JavaScript is and cascading style sheets and all the other web tech stuff. But like a lot of these tools, first take a look at all your various script references, how you're going to pull Chart.js in, Leaflet, and so forth. And I give links to all these things. The very first thing you might want to do, though, is jump down to the bottom here and make a note of this. I've tried to comment this code as much as I can to show you what's going on. Get JSON. So basically what you want to do is that GeoJSON that we created back over here, right? I took that file, this file, put it on a web location where it can be accessed, and then it comes into the sort of this web client or the dashboard, right? And so it gets read in. Now, what's cool about this is that the GeoJSON created from QGIS drives everything. So all the data, the map and the charts all use the GeoJSON data. And you can see some what are called callback features, so what'll happen on every feature and so forth. And another thing you might want to point out is here, so on each feature, this is when Leaflet is bringing a new data set in when it processes every feature. So in this case, that's every feature is every Indian state boundary. And what I'm having it do is create a separate data array I'm calling scatter data that populates the scatter plot. And this I had a little bug. The way I did it was I had it update the scatter plot every time it pulls data in. So make note of that. You also have things like, this is how the resetting the highlight, highlighting the feature, that's all of this when these things happen. So, move your mouse over, highlight it, move off accordingly. That's setting the colors and so forth. There's also some things in here you'll find, those color brewer colors that I showed you earlier. That's how those are applied to the map legend. And that's down at the bottom actually is where the legend, the map legend, it'll take hard-coded class values that I used from QGIS and plug those in to create the color ramp using the color brewer colors. And this is kind of an important part too, the info update. So info is basically from Leaflet. It's a control that Leaflet helps give the map in terms of things that are on top of the map, like these shapes. So the idea is here that every time you move over one of the shapes, you're calling this sort of update function, and what it's doing is it's grabbing the data out of that current shape that's been moved over. So like the confirmed cases, the discharge, the deaths, and it's going to create a div tag HTML. This part is what updates all this stuff here. So notice how when I move my mouse, Uttar Pradesh, Jharkhand, Tamil Nadu, and so forth, it updates that. And then it also sends off to new chart. It'll send that data off to this function, which is right about, where's new chart? Yeah. It basically updates this variable. Again, I don't claim to be an expert on everything about Chart.js. Chart.js, I learned enough to kind of be dangerous to make this, but it's basically sending that data into re-rendering of the chart. So when you move over a map shape, it takes the data from that map shape, sends it over here, and updates the chart, and that's why you're seeing the chart move along. So something you could do if you were interested is maybe update it to also update the scatter plot or highlight the scatter plot. I just didn't have time to do that, and so forth. The scatter plot just gets rendered when the page loads, window on load. I have it start out with just nothing, so there's something appears, and it follows the same general function. It takes data that I showed you earlier, how it gets populated. It puts a title, and tooltips. This part is what will do the actual display of what happens when you move over the scatter plot. So when I move over these shapes, the fact it says Tamil Nadu and the data values and so forth, I couldn't honestly figure out how to make it break down instead of having it be on one line in terms of the X and Y values. But again, it was a prototype to show you what's possible. So that's kind of a quick whirlwind advanced tour of this prototype. The code is available. If you're a web developer, I think you'll find it relatively easy to start working with. And again, it's using all open source tools that are linked. And so I encourage you to take it to a whole nother level, look at other dashboards that are out there and create something unique and original using open source tools. And if you do, let us know, share it back. That's the spirit. Thanks a lot. Thanks for watching this video. I hope now that you have a good understanding of how to go about creating coronavirus dashboards using maps and charts. And as a reminder, all of the software, data, and code examples given in this video are free and open source. Check out the links below in the video description how you can access all the tools, data sets, and code samples used in the video to get started right away with creating coronavirus dashboards using maps and charts. And as one final reminder, this is just the beginning. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to this channel, like this video, leave me comments, or send me a message. I love hearing from the YouTube community. Thanks a lot for watching.